A low, metallic hum rolled across the frozen expanse of the high Arctic as armored vehicles carved fresh tracks into hardened snow. Satellite dishes pivoted slowly toward the horizon. Overhead, a formation of patrol aircraft cut through a pale gray sky, their engines echoing across the ice. Thousands of miles away, in Eastern Europe, another kind of movement was unfolding. Columns of NATO vehicles advancing along narrow roadways, supply convoys tightening their routes, radar systems sweeping the skies with renewed urgency. Canadian forces were present in both theaters, operating in environments separated by geography, but connected by strategy. Communications traffic surged between command centers in Ottawa, Brussels, and forward operating bases. The tempo had changed. The scale had shifted. What had once been routine deployments now carried unmistakable weight. This was not simply a repositioning of forces. It was the opening posture of a coordinated two-front strategic alignment. According to Canadian defense officials, the deployments represent a deliberate response to what they describe as increased strategic pressure in both the Arctic region and NATO's eastern flank. Canadian military spokesman stated that additional personnel, surveillance systems, and logistical units have been mobilized to reinforce sovereignty operations in the Arctic, particularly in areas where melting ice has opened new maritime corridors. Officials in Ottawa emphasized that these routes are becoming increasingly contested, with Russian activity expanding in both frequency and proximity. At the same time, Canadian forces assigned to NATO operations have reportedly increased their presence in Eastern Europe, participating in joint exercises and forward defense positioning alongside allied troops. According to statements from the Canadian Ministry of National Defence, the objective is to ensure rapid response capability across multiple domains. Canadian officials claimed the dual deployments signal readiness, resilience, and commitment to both national and alliance security. They also framed the move as a necessary adaptation to what they described as a multi-vector threat environment, where challenges no longer emerge from a single geographic axis. But the story quickly became far more complicated. Before we break down how this dual-front strategy could reshape NATO's operational posture and Arctic power dynamics, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the latest dramatic developments shaping global geopolitics. According to Russian state media, the increased Canadian presence in the Arctic has been interpreted as a provocation rather than a defensive measure. Russian officials stated that their own Arctic deployments are part of long-standing territorial protection efforts, supported by established infrastructure, including icebreaker fleets, air defense systems, and forward bases along the northern coastline. Moscow has emphasized that it views the Arctic as a critical national interest zone, both economically and militarily. At the same time, Russian analysts have pointed to NATO's eastern expansion as evidence of broader strategic encirclement. According to Russian military commentators, the presence of Canadian troops in Eastern Europe contributes to what they describe as an escalatory posture by NATO forces. On the NATO side, officials have consistently maintained that deployments are defensive in nature, designed to deter potential aggression and reassure member states. NATO authorities explained that forward troop positioning allows for faster response times in the event of a crisis, reducing the risk of miscalculation. Air defense systems, for example, operate by detecting incoming threats and coordinating interception responses within seconds, creating a layered protective network. Between these narratives lies a complex reality that analysts are still working to understand. What does this mean for the Arctic region and NATO's eastern frontier? The answer is strategic convergence. The Arctic is no longer an isolated frontier, defined only by ice and remoteness. It is rapidly transforming into a corridor of economic and military significance. According to defense analysts, the opening of Arctic shipping routes reduces transit times between Asia and Europe by thousands of miles, creating new trade opportunities and new vulnerabilities. Canada's increased presence in this region reflects an effort to assert control over these emerging pathways, while monitoring the expansion of Russian infrastructure. Russian Arctic bases equipped with advanced radar systems and missile platforms provide Moscow with extended reach across the Northern Hemisphere. In Eastern Europe, the stakes are equally high. NATO's eastern flank represents the alliance's first line of defense against potential expansionist moves. Canadian participation in joint operations reinforces collective defense agreements, ensuring that any threat to one member state triggers a coordinated response. The dual deployment connects these two theaters into a single strategic framework. The message was clear. Canada is preparing for simultaneous pressure across multiple critical fronts. The immediate military reaction was measured but unmistakable. According to NATO officials, additional reconnaissance flights have been authorized over key sectors in Eastern Europe, while Arctic patrol frequencies have increased along Canada's northern approaches. That increase in surveillance has consequences far beyond routine monitoring. Regional governments began responding within hours. Baltic states issued statements reaffirming their reliance on NATO's collective defense structure, while Scandinavian countries signaled closer coordination on Arctic security initiatives. Economic indicators followed closely behind. Energy markets showed early signs of volatility as traders assessed the implications of heightened Arctic tensions on future shipping routes and resource extraction. Oil prices edged upward. Shipping insurance costs climbed, logistics expenses surged. That spike in costs has consequences far beyond regional trade. Diplomatic channels quickly activated. According to U.S. media reports, high-level discussions between NATO leaders and Russian representatives have been scheduled in an effort to reduce the risk of escalation. International organizations, including the United Nations, have called for restraint and dialogue. Within the United States, political reactions have begun to take shape. Lawmakers debated the scale of U.S. commitments to NATO operations, with some emphasizing the need for increased support and others warning against deeper entanglement in multi-theater tensions. Each layer of response added complexity to an already fragile situation. Canada maintains that its dual deployments are a defensive necessity, designed to protect sovereignty and uphold alliance commitments. Russian officials maintain that these movements represent an expansion of NATO influence into strategically sensitive regions. Between these positions lies a rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape, where actions are interpreted through fundamentally different lenses. The Arctic and Eastern Europe are no longer separate arenas. They are interconnected pressure points within a broader strategic contest. Analysts note that the synchronization of these deployments reflects a shift toward multi-domain readiness, where land, sea, air, and even economic factors are considered part of a unified operational environment. The balance remains delicate. A single miscalculation in one region could ripple across the other, amplifying tensions in ways that are difficult to predict. For now, both sides appear to be calibrating their moves carefully, signaling strength while avoiding direct confrontation. But the trajectory is uncertain, and the margin for error continues to narrow. Will this dual-front posture remain a controlled display of readiness? Or is it the beginning of a broader realignment in global power dynamics? Stay tuned for further updates as this situation continues to develop. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss the latest dramatic geopolitical developments shaping the world.